Hello and welcome to the Defender podcast powered by Clean Wisconsin. I'm Amy Barrilleaux. This episode actually aired for the first time last spring, and it continues to be one of our most downloaded episodes because, let's face it, people want to know if letting all the dandelions and violets and basically every kind of weed take root and grow in your yard during the month of May is worth it. Does No Mow May really make a difference in the battle to save our pollinators? Well, it turns out I have a yard, and I definitely want to help our native pollinators, so I invited an expert over for a tour to find out what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right, and how often I really need to mow. That's right now on The Defender. It's that time of year when we have a decision to make, to mow or not to mow. Since it started in the UK, No Mow May has definitely reached Wisconsin, and that means dandelions and violets left untouched in yards across the state. On a warm early spring day, I meet Elizabeth Braatz, who heads up the Bumble Brigade pollinator program for the Department of Natural Resources, to tour a typical Wisconsin yard, my yard, and learn all about No Mow May. Little yard.
Sounds good.
First, I guess, explain for people who haven't heard of No Mow May what the general concept is around that.
So the concept of No Mow May started with people thinking that, well, what if we don't mow for a month so that little flowers in the midst of the yard have a chance to grow up a little further. And well, there's a lot of research that still needs to be done on that, on specifically not mowing at all for the month of May. There has been research done on bee-friendly lawns, which is the idea that if you have spring ephemerals or small little flowers that are poking up throughout your lawn, it can be really helpful for native bees and other pollinators. And similarly, maybe kind of less mow May or slow mow summer might be the way to pivot, because it can be very neat in theory and then kind of hard in practice to not mow for a month and then have a very large lawn with annoyed neighbors, and it actually can be very hard in the grass. So another way to look at it is just to kind of slow mow summer, where you let it grow higher than you normally would, maybe at the highest setting that your lawnmower can do, and then try to mow about 1/3 of the amount rather than going from maybe like 12 inches to 3 inches or something after the end of the month, and everyone's sick of it. It's like, all right, let's just cut it all short again. But there's a lot of other ways as well. So just standing in your yard, I'm seeing all sorts of examples of ways that yards can provide really, really crucial habitat.
Well, let's take a look. So I don't have very many flowering weeds yet, but we'll walk in the back because I have a couple. It takes a while for my yard to start growing anything. So I guess No Mow May, people are thinking, well, these little spring flowers are popping out, and that's where, that's what the pollinators need. Is that basically true?
Yes, spring blooming flowers are really, really vital for pollinators. For example, so we're going to think about the life cycle of the bumblebee. So we live year after year, and we eat throughout the winter and everything, but bumblebees don't quite do that. They have an annual cycle. So that means that, we're cozy in our homes, they're cozy under leaf litter and so on, which is a great reason why leaving a bit of leaves in your yard can be really, really valuable for these overwintering insects. Most of the colony is dead during winter. Only the new queens or gynes are alive, and they are overwintering. But after they wake up in the spring, they are very hungry, and so they need two things. They need to search for a place to nest for the future colony, and they need to feed themselves because they have had a very, very long diet over the winter, and also they need enough food to provision their new colony. So that's why spring blooming plants and early blooming flowers are actually really key, because while we may not see as many bees, the ones that we do see are really important because they are often the queens. So
if we see bees this time of year, that's queens that have just now kind of come out of their underground or under leaf overwintering stay?
Yeah, it's very, very likely that most of the bees you see in early spring are going to be queens or gynes. I mean, maybe if one gets out really, really early, then maybe she's already made a generation, but that would be unlikely. Most of the time, it's gynes or new queens, and you can tell them besides the timing of it. They tend to be a little larger than workers of the same species. They tend to be very well groomed, for lack of a better word, very, very tidy bees with very nice hair. And especially if you see them scanning, kind of zigzagging along the ground, it's like they're searching for something, and they are. They're probably searching for a nest site.
Well, so over here in the back, I have these little blue flowers, also looking very weedy. So we certainly haven't mowed yet. So these are maybe something that pollinators might want to dig into?
Yeah, quite possibly. And it's interesting with the kind of the weedy concept is something that it'd be great to have discussions on, and maybe kind of start shifting that mindset of, so why do we think that this perfect English lawn from across the sea is what everything needs to look like, and it's okay to have a bit of native plants and natural spring blooming flowers and things like that. And I know that some people are in HOAs and similar things where they have to be careful. So I'm not saying to want all the rules, but sometimes also you can have a kind of gradient of neatness. Maybe the front yard is more neat, and then you can do a bit of your own thing a little more in the backyard. But I think it's very, very possible to have a very, very beautiful yard and provide a ton of habitat for native bees.
So if we look here, we're in my not very well kept backyard with plenty of random stuff around.
Beautiful backyard.
Oh, it's lovely. We're looking back. So this is a dead part of a tree that we had trimmed we trimmed, and we didn't know what to do with the trimmings, and so they're just kind of piled up by the fence. We got some sort of random sticks, some weedy flowering plants, a lot of sticks and leaves, and what I think people might come back here and be like, you need to clean all this stuff up. Should we clean it all up? Or from your pollinator perspective, what is this? What are you seeing here?
I'm seeing so much habitat. I'm seeing a lot of habitat here. And so we'll go through some of the things. So there's some dead branches with leaves on them in the back, in the corner. That is great habitat for all sorts of insects to hide underneath and use for habitat, because it provides shelter. And so we think of the kind of basics of what do we need? We need food, water, and shelter. And most animals are exactly the same. So when I see that those branches and leaves and so on, I'm seeing an insect paradise to hide underneath and survive the winter, as well as even later in the summer to provide habitat for them. Similarly, I'm seeing a pile of kind of stems. I'm going to actually wander over here. Okay. Almost, look, see, here, you hear, you can hear that. It's pithy stems. So we have a ton so there are about 400 to 500 species of native bees in Wisconsin. Incredible diversity, all these amazing creatures just kind of flying under our noses. And a lot of them, so 85% of them, are actually solitary. So by solitary, I mean, if you think of the kind of classic bee on the cereal box, the honeybee, these huge colonies of bees, most bees actually aren't like that. Most of them are kind of a single family businesses, mom and pop shops, where the male and the female will mate, and then they'll provide nests and provisioning for their kids, and that's the extent of the colony. So it's just one family. And so a lot of these bees will nest in, oh my gosh, ducks!
Yeah,
delightful.
Nature.
All sorts of if anyone tuning in also likes birds, a lot of the things that are good for pollinators are also good for birds, like some of the flowering shrubs and so on can be great habitat. But all right, stems. So what they'll do is they will go into the kind of hollow pithy stem, and they'll lay an egg, and then they'll put in a little bit of pollen ball and provisioning for the little baby bee inside that stem, and then they will kind of suction it off, and then they'll lay another one with another pollen ball, and they'll keep going until there's a whole hotel of little bees hiding inside the stem, waiting to the dead stem, waiting to emerge in the spring. And so keeping these around is really helpful because we don't know, could be quite a number of little pollinators hiding inside, using it as a home.
So these are stems I think I broke off of some perennial plants in the late fall and just kind of threw them in the backyard.
That works.
And so you're saying that little bees could be inside of these stems.
Yeah, they'd probably be, I guess it depends on the species of what stage they're in at what time, but yes, they'll use woody stems and pithy stems to overwinter and store their future generations in. Speaking also of kind of neatness, there are different ways that you can still have a lot of these aspects of a pollinator-friendly habitat and still have it look very neat and orderly. For example, the University of Wisconsin Arboretum is wonderful habitat, and they also have people who are working very diligently as their full-time jobs to keep it tidy, but it is also very tidy. For example, for the stems, you can, I've seen people kind of pile them and put them in the back. Similarly, for leaf mulch, you can almost use fallen leaves as mulch so leaving the leaves is another really helpful thing so that these critters can have somewhere underneath to hibernate, which I see leaves float and,
you sure
and all
do.
sorts of things floating around here, which is great. But people can, if it's in other parts of the yard, sometimes maybe you want to rake it off of parts of the yard, but you can use it as a free natural mulch around your native plant gardens and so on. Similarly, some of the brush piles, I've seen people make kind of, they'll like cut them in about the same size and then stack them in a corner so that it looks a little more like it was deliberately put there and tidy and so on. Rock piles are another thing that which I see some over there.
So we have a giant rock piles everywhere. I think as we put in gardens, we find rocks and then we just stick them somewhere until we might need a rock someday. So yeah, big pile of rocks right here.
There you go. Yeah. So a lot of bees actually are also ground nesting bees, and so they'll so little patches of bare ground or rock piles or things like that, they'll hide underneath and use as habitat. And so you can make the rock pile as natural or as orderly as you want. It's still a rock pile that they can use. So
okay.
Yeah, another great way.
So this time of year, I'll take you back to my right now pretty sad perennial bed in the back. This time of year, I think I see a lot of people coming in clearing these beds out. So there are leaves that have fallen here from last fall that right now are still there. So would you advise trying to leave these leaves, because you mentioned leave the leaves, or when is the best time to clear these things out?
Well, if you can stand it, I would say to let it stay here and provide you're taking away all this natural free mulch with all the nutrients and all the protection of the soil and all the little invertebrates hiding underneath that might help the health of your soil underneath, and that all these leaves are a part of protecting it also with evaporation and moisture retention. Leaves are really, really great. So if possible, I would encourage people to consider leaving the leaves as long as they can. And once the flowers and plants grow up, it's going to be a lot harder to see it anyway. So kind of just rethinking what is a successful garden.
So when you see people, coming out on a nice spring day and raking out all these leaves and then like replacing the leaves with mulch that they bought at the store, kind of what goes through your mind?
100 tiny bees are screaming. No. Yeah, I totally get it. Like we want to have things tidy. And it's become such a cultural norm as well to have, at this time I clean everything out and I put it in the wood mulch and then I buy more and then it's all dyed and treated and so on, and I'll stick this on top. And I completely understand. If possible, using leaves as mulch instead, or at least kind of reducing the mulching use is really helpful, because I mentioned earlier those ground nesting bees, with a really thick mulch layer, they can't get to the ground, so it gets really hard for them to nest, so you're disrupting that part of their cycle. Yeah, you can save a little money and effort to let the existing cycle that's kind of come about over thousands and thousands of years to do its course, and I'd recommend that if possible. Another really neat thing I've seen with mulch in a native garden is that you can kind of do a reverse mulch. So instead of mulching everything and leaving a path of grass that you have to keep mulching, you can mulch a path and then have gardens surrounding it, and then you walk on the mulched path and see your garden, and have maybe a section that you leave as lawn to have picnics in, or so on.
So back to the lawn. I know you were talking about earlier about No Mow May, and maybe it's maybe more of a less mow May concept could be successful too.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think there was, University of Minnesota has been doing a lot of really great research concerning lawns, and they've been finding some good flower visiting insect responses from bee-friendly lawns, so ones that, such as your yard, that have all these little flowers interspersed in them, as well as again, maybe letting it grow a little higher can help with those plants growing up, but it doesn't have to be after a full month. And we want to make sure it's sustainable from a human standpoint, because I've heard that sometimes it can be hard on maintenance, and the people who are mowing, or if you're doing in a city, it can become a bit hard to maintain from a operation standpoint. And so we really want to make sure these systems still work with what we're doing as people, so that we can keep doing them. Kind of like doing a diet where you only eat broccoli for a month is probably not going to be sustainable. So I'd much rather recommend something that people can do a little bit at a time, and not have some of the downsides of not mowing for too long that can sometimes arise.
So I guess you're saying, if we keep some habitat on the ground, some sticks, some leaves, some rocks, that when the queens kind of come out of their nests and they're hungry, if we haven't mowed at this point in the year, or maybe as these natural flowers start kind of cropping up in April and May, then we've left some food. And that's basically, that's what we really want to accomplish this time of year.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. We're really looking to provide those food for the hungry queens, or guines, I guess, if they're bumblebees. And one thing I'd also mention is I wouldn't get too worried about the exact mowing cycles. Since also, if a lawn is completely covered in pesticides and insecticides and only turf grass, regardless of whether or not you mow it for a month, it probably will not be providing very much habitat for things that are looking to eat from there. And so that more kind of that holistic approach of what is the whole garden doing, and how is it providing habitat for these different life stages is, I think, a great lens to look at it.
So maybe if we look over here, I can see some more. I think these might be different purple flowers, and then some dandelions and some other things. Once those are kind of done blooming and our grass is getting high, maybe it's mid-May, we shouldn't feel too bad about going ahead and mowing the parts of our yard that are for mowing, but we should think about all the other parts of the yard.
Exactly. Yeah. When it's time to mow, sometimes you gotta mow, and I completely understand that. But yes, like you said, thinking about those other parts of the yard, thinking about the piles of leaves and the native plant garden that you put in, and the rock piles and all those other things are. And I see that we're actually standing right behind a vegetable garden. So you're getting some food. I see tomato trellises, wonderful. Bumblebees actually are really, really great pollinators of tomatoes because they'll do buzz pollination, where they grab onto the flower and then they vibrate and then it shakes pollen onto them, and they're very efficient at a lot of these plants. So
okay,
so you're eating, the bees are helping with the things you're eating as well, and I see all these twigs and leaves and stuff in this vegetable bed, and it's great to see.
So really, the things that you might feel bad about if you live in a suburban area. I haven't had time to clean out my leaves. I haven't had time to pick up all the sticks or to move my brush to the curb for brush pickup are actually things to kind of be proud of.
Yeah, take all that energy that you're spending, feeling ashamed and trying to work on this. And if you take a portion of that energy and turn it into providing more spring blooming, summer blooming, fall blooming, flowering plants, and for pollinators, I think you'd still end up with a really, really beautiful garden, and you're helping encourage cycles that will help it kind of sustain itself. So I guess the main takeaway is I'd say for things that you can do, and no worries, you don't have to do all of them. Start small with something that feels like you can do it this summer.
Okay.
And if you add one of these list items every summer for the next couple years, suddenly you'll look out and you'll have this whole habitat. So the 4 kind of main items I'd say would be habitat, especially overwintering habitat. So that includes leaving the leaves, reducing mulching or maybe reversing mulching into paths, and saving stems. Food. So we're providing habitat shelter. Now we're looking at food, and so that's going to be planting native blooming flowers, and your vegetable gardens as well are great for all seasons. And maybe that includes, depending on whether your lawn does have those little flowers throughout it, doing some kind of slow mow version of mowing. Another one is also just kind of reducing pesticides and insecticides, since you can have all these sorts of things, but if you keep filling it with insecticides, well, that may kill some insects you don't like. It will also kill a lot of insects that are doing all sorts of work for your garden that you may not even be realizing that they're doing, such as eating pests naturally or pollinating. And then finally, sharing knowledge. So chatting about this new version of your garden with neighbors, chatting about with your family. Sometimes if you see a neat bumblebee in your yard, you can send it in to the Bumblebee Brigade with the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. And so try something and spread it on.
Well, you have made me feel so good about my yard. I'll just leave it like this for as long as possible. It's really easy to not come out and do yard work on a pretty day. I can go for a bike ride or do something else.
There you go.
So Elizabeth Braatz from the Bumblebee Brigade with the DNR, thank you so much for coming to my yard and for sharing your wisdom about how to protect our pollinators.
Oh, well, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for listening to the Defender, Wisconsin's environmental podcast. If you have something you want me to talk about, or just a question or a comment, send me an email, podcast@cleanwisconsin.org. Until next time, I'm Amy Barrilleaux.